So looking to the distinction between what's real and what's aspirational, wanted to really touch on a little bit more deeply on automation and agentic buying.
Yeah.
What parts of video workflow should agencies never fully hand over to the machines as
Yeah.
we look to those the machines doing more?
Yeah, I think, the automation of buying, I think it's always, anything we're looking at with AI is always human in the loop. I think, where we can accelerate, not replace, is always what we want to do. And we look at it as, starting with the very bottom, the things that are broken, the things that are just lacking technology, copying, pasting campaigns into multiple platforms, and things that we can automate and, let the human hit the traffic button at the end, and use AI as a backstop too to, catch human error, right, where we can have structured data, categorization of that data, so if it does change or it's out of bounds or pacing is off, that we can be alerted, and really that simpatico relationship between human and tech. I think that's where we're trying to focus, but good clean data in, and using that to really augment and accelerate what we do as humans.
Let's explore that simpatico relationship
Yeah.
between the machines and the humans, with the idea of what does modular video buying really mean in practice right now, particularly for an agency team?
Yeah, I think the challenge for us is we're trying to solve for a system that we know is going to be fragmented, both for consumers and us as media buyers, and unifying some of that fragmentation, whether it's data, access to content, just the way we approach it, accessing premium video content, how we categorize it, across maybe multiple platforms that may call it different. Building that data foundation is the key to that successful relationship. And media buying can really, AI will replace or augment some of those things that we're doing repetitively, right? Putting the same campaign into separate platforms, or right, building the ability to multi-traffic campaigns, or make budget optimizations, or make things that need to happen in sequence very easily. A lot of our workflows have multiple steps, and collapsing those into kind of a single, human-initiated workflow has been really valuable, right? Deals are kind of a fundamental thing we focus on, because that process is just really broken, but core to how we buy CTV and premium video. And just being able to categorize traffic, include in targeting, set bidding, all those things that our traders or operators hands on keyboard are doing 3 to 4 times repetitively, identifying those things and really saying, okay, this is something that we can augment and reduce to kind of a single prompt and go from there.
So looking at what you've been doing in terms of getting all these capabilities together for premium video, how are the conversations with PMG's clients evolving in terms of bridging the gap between branding and performance, which is, branding has always been a traditional part of premium video, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think very much that's the conversation that we started to kind of collapse internally, and then we're collapsing up with clients. And I think, being able to articulate video as a full funnel tactic and really have, all media focused on outcomes, and we're moving to more of like what I would call like a signal economy, and we're portfolio managers in all of this, right? And being able to show how the most premium, direct bot inventory can, perform or drive action or, provide incremental reach, all the necessary things that are not, DR attribution. We look at performance as we're driving performance for business outcomes, return on ad spend invested, and ultimately what drives our client's business. So, trying to articulate that with data, with the insights, and being able to work up funnel, right? Here's content we see working. Why don't we go acquire more of that and go introduce conversations with consumers in that realm?
Mike, lastly, staying with the next phase that we're looking towards with AI-powered premium video, what's the biggest mindset shift that agencies need to make to fully operate in this next phase?
Yeah, I think it's, buying is not going to be just, kicked off from nowhere, sent to a publisher and come back. Opportunity isn't generated by technology. Opportunity is enabled and enhanced, I feel like it. So I tend to see this mindset shift from a seller agent and buyer agent are going to talk to each other and suddenly develop something that works for a client. I think we need to, make sure we're figuring out ways that, client success, client data is a part of that conversation and kind of couriered by humans to be able to say, hey, we really want to, we're not trafficking a buy, we want to understand reach and frequency, we want to understand incrementality and price and, price sensitivity on that inventory and what we can get, those kind of micro conversations that may lead to a buy and sell operation. But I think sometimes we get in this mindset of buyer and seller agent just collapsing that whole sales cycle, that there's a lot of pieces in that really develop, hardworking campaigns and things that are ultimately going to prove success.